It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another first thoughts and initial impressions Epic 7 video. This one, we'll be talking about the newest specialty changes for Aidin, as well as Glenn, and then we'll be talking about the newest Moonlight 5-star hero, which is Pirate Captain Flan, and then, of course, we'll be talking about Jack-O Valentine, who was the teased character for Guilty Gear Strive. So, a lot to cover as always. Let's just jump into it. The specialty changes I'm not going to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on because it's just going to make the video way too long. I'll give you my initial thoughts, my general take on the character, and then go over the runes and my thoughts on those. So, overall, for Verdant Aidin, who is up first, I think that she is good, just not super insane. I was expecting a god tier specialty change along the lines of Adventure Raz, and what I ended up getting was a pretty solid specialty change that seems to be, entirely focused on Pain Pursuer Moroi. We will see in the future as the story goes on and Aidin gains more abilities if she ends up becoming that god tier character like Adventure Raz was, but for the most part, I think that this is just an okay specialty change. Something I'm definitely going to get and build, but just nothing super, super exciting. They made the change to her S3. It is no longer Lightning Bolt. It is now Gliding Slash, and it gains Lifesteal on it as a result. Usually these moves give 30% of the damage returned as lifesteal. We'll have to wait and see the numbers and see if that's the case. It is very good, just nothing earth-shattering as far as ability changes go. Looking at her runes, she gets 5 speed, very good. 20% effectiveness is fine, but not something super, super amazing. Unity rune is very strange. It gives 7% critical hit chance to all allies, which means that, it could help with gearing not only Aidin, you only need like 93%, or if you're trying to use her in a specific expedition or hunt, maybe only 78% critical hit chance, which is very, that's fine. But I feel like its best use is just going to end up being to fill in like that last 3% missing crit hit chance that some players have when they only have like 97, 98, 99% crit chance on their characters. I feel like for the most part, it's going to largely be wasted. You're never going to get full value out of it. So that's why it's a bit weird. Health rune decreases the damage that she takes from elite or boss monsters by 15%. Doesn't stack with other passives. Again, it just further kind of cements this Pain Pursuer Moroi niche that I was talking about, and it will become incredibly apparent by the time we get to talking about her S2. But first, let's talk about the other runes in the S3. Sun rune makes it so that her new S3 Gliding Slash does 10% more damage, and the Speed rune is probably the best rune overall in the entire set. It makes it so that when you land a critical hit with Gliding Slash, you have a 100% chance to decrease the skill cooldown of it by 1 turn, which means it's much more spammable, which means she will be getting a lot more health, and she'll be able to sustain a lot better. So I think the Speed rune is definitely the best one in the entire kit. Looking at the ones that affect her S2, Blade Gust. When you use Blade Gust, you now have a 100% chance to dispel 1 buff from the target before applying the unbuffable from the move, and the Infection rune makes it so that the chance to increase the unbuffable on elite and boss monsters is increased from 80% to 100%. So yeah, this is what I was talking about for Pain Pursuer Moroi. You're essentially using Blade Gust in order to remove the defense buff from Moroi and give it unbuffable, because that's basically a core mechanic and how you get high scores on that. I feel like for anyone who has rolled for Cerise or already has Cerise, she does the job a bit better. There are damage dealers that are probably going to do a bit more damage than her, like Sermia or like a Euphine or even something like Zealot Carmen Rose. So yeah, she feels like she slots into the Pain Pursuer Moroi team with these changes, but it's not going to be optimal in my opinion. Then finally, let's take a look at the changes to her S1 ankle cut, which is already a very good S1. It increases her combat readiness by 20%. Normally, these effects give 15%, so it's already above average there. They increased the damage on it by 10%, and they made it so that there's a 60% chance to decrease speed of the enemy for 2 turns when you use the move. So this move already, if it has good damage already and it gets a damage increase plus above average CR push plus a slow, it's a pretty overloaded S1, and it is very, very strong. I think I like this set of changes the best just because it does make it a very standout S1 that does quite a lot. That slow is very, very good, and again, something that you really want on Pain Pursuer Moroi in order to achieve a high score. So I think they've just made her kind of into a Moroi bot for the most part. Now, let's take a look at Vigilante leader Glenn, who I also think is a very, very good specialty change. I think he is a great budget option for players that are struggling in specific units. And I also think he is a very strong Guild War offense unit in the face of specific problematic characters that many players might not have an answer to just yet. So they've changed his S3 Focus Fire into limited release. It gives him 50% critical hit chance now, in addition to the greater attack buff and extra turn it used to give. Critical hit chance on this move is massive because now you can drop all that stats that you had in critical hit chance, invest it into things like attack percentage or crit damage or even speed or bulk. Excuse me. It will just make the character a lot stronger overall. You will just have so many free stats now because of that. Crit hit chance really does give a lot of stats, especially in terms of things like gear score. It's very difficult to get a huge lump sum of critical hit chance. So yeah, I really do like that. Let's look at his runes. Achievement rune gives 15% attack, always good, especially for somebody whose job is to be a single target assassin. Health rune of 10% is whatever. Rangers have really poor health, so you're not really getting as much HP out of this as you probably think you are. Trust rune giving 2% extra dual attack chance is actually really nice, especially in conjunction with the changes to his S1 that we'll be talking about at the end of this section. Wealth rune gives him 5% hit chance to himself as well as allies. Very good. Solidifies himself as an anti-dodge character because he does have a lot of hit chance now in his actual kit. I believe he has like 20% on a lot of stuff. Very similar to somebody like Milam. And you can combine it with a artifact like Symbol of Unity to help him do his job further. It gives him more hit chance and it gives him extra damage. And damage is really good. It's better than attack because it comes at the end of the damage calculation. And that's exactly what this Restraint rune does. It gives you increased damage to a blue unit as long as it's not an elite monster or boss. And that damage increase is 25%. That's massive. That means this character can one-shot things like Rem, can one-shot characters like Crow if you have certain buffs or very, very good gear. So Restraint rune, plus all of these other changes that he got, the freeing up of stats in order to help boost him up, the increased base attack, things like that. It's really good for him, and I think that's where he's going to solidify himself, find his niche as that offensive unit that answers specific tanky blue units, things like Rem, things like Crow. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he could even one-shot characters like Ruel. He just feels like somebody you would bring in against AI to assassinate a specific target and keep them out of the game for good. Let's look at the changes to his S3 limited release with the runes. He now has a 100% chance to dispel one buff from the caster. Obviously going to be very good because it can potentially get unbuffable off of you, which is a big deal for him. Having him being unbuffable really, really sucks because he needs that greater attack buff and crit hit chance to do his job. And then naturally having essentially the extra turn means he's going to get rid of most other buffs on it. So it's a nice to have quality of life change. Precise attack now does an extra 10% damage, which is great because this is the move that you're using to remove targets from the fight and extinct them. So yeah, this is really, really strong already. It was one of the reasons why people played Glenn even as a 3-star before the specialty change. So obviously now it's stronger, it has more hit chance. And now when it defeats an enemy, it has a 100% chance to extend the buffs that are on the caster by 1 turn, which means he gets to keep that critical hit chance buff, he gets to keep that greater attack buff. That means that he essentially is going to have strong off turns, especially when we take a look at what his actual S1 changes were. It already was a defense breaking move, which is very, very good, but it now has a 15% combat readiness increase on it, and it also has an additional 15% hit chance. So this is a really good S1, and again, you get to capitalize on those extended buffs from the one rune, and you also get to capitalize on the extra dual attack chance from the other rune. So overall, Glenn feels like a very complete character. He has an identity, he has a purpose, and he feels very strong at it and very well rounded at it. So again, if you're looking for a Guild War offense hero that it specializes in assassinating tanky blue units or just tanky units in general, or even something like Violet, if you're still struggling with Violet, definitely build Glenn. So now let's talk about Pirate Captain Flan, or as I've seen people affectionately refer to her online, Francis Drake, which I think is a great nickname and I hope we keep that. Francis Drake being an obvious reference to Francis Drake, the pirate captain from the Fate franchise. So I really do like that name. As always, let's take a look at the cool cinematic for their S3 before we talk about her.
If you want to pass through here, you're gonna need to pay up. If you want to pass through here, you're gonna need to pay up. What made you hop aboard my ship? Money? Honor? Knowledge? Well, it doesn't matter, because if you're with me, you'll have it all!
Alright. So, Pirate Captain Flan is a Dark Ranger of the Gemini Zodiac symbol. I feel like this is probably one of the most common Zodiac symbols that we talk about here on this channel. This is Seaside Bellona's stat line, as well as Faithless Litica. So you probably already know the deal. 1182 attack is quite good, especially when we consider that this is going to be, spoiler alert, a burn character. That is where Carrot ranks and where Araminta ranks as far as attack goes, so she's in good company there. 5,299 health is very good for a ranger. It's terrible overall, but it's pretty good for a ranger. 114 speed is where I really like my characters to be at. They're slightly above the average speed, and therefore they can surprise people most of the time if I want them to be very fast. Not good enough for an opener in the current meta with the way things currently are in Epic 7, but still a very respectable speed score. 571 defense is very good for a ranger. 15% crit hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, 5% dual attack chance, 18% effectiveness, and no effect resistance. Imprint release is health, and imprint concentration is 18% attack, and that one's pretty huge because, again, it's a burn character. More attacks actually matter. Is really, really good. Taking a look at her S3, it is full burst. You acquire 3 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on Mulligore. Increases Flan's attack for 2 turns, and then attacks all enemies with a barrage of cannon fire, inflicting 1 burn stack and planting 1 bomb on all enemies for 2 turns, before decreasing the combat readiness of all enemies by 25%, then increases the combat readiness of Flan by 50%. This is kind of like a hybrid between Researcher Carrot's S3 and Silverblade Araminta's S3. It is very similar in the fact that it gives you kind of like a buff, and then also the 2 burns like on the enemy team like Carrot's does, but it has the same drawback here that Silverblade Araminta's has, which is if you don't have a setup character, then it's going to fall flat. She has no way to actually get through that first turn immunity if you're trying to play her fast or go first before the enemy team. So she is going to be compared heavily, I feel like, to those 2 characters, to a character like Silverblade Araminta and a character like Researcher Carrot. I think that she is a more complete character and a more usable character than Silverblade Araminta is, especially because, you know, the existence of this move makes you question why Silverblade exists at all in her current state, because full burst is a lot better than dropping the rock on people with Araminta. But yeah, she feels like a more aggressive version of Researcher Carrot, and is only really good if you have a setup for this move, because full burst is a lot. Burn, obviously, is a pretty good debuff. Bomb is a ridiculous debuff because it does more damage than a burn. You can't reduce its cooldown timers as far as I'm aware of, so I don't think Dilibet does a whole heck of a lot here against this character. And then it's also a stun, which is the best CC in the entire game. And then that's before we talk about the fact that this is a pushback. And then also you increase the combat readiness of Flan, who's already an above average speed character, so she's probably going to be able to take her second turn before someone on the enemy team is able to even take their first turn. So it's, again, a very, very strong S3, especially if you combine it with characters like Ron, characters like Pera. You will be seeing this character, I feel like, mostly played in the same kind of compositions that you see Summertime Assyria. I think Summertime is a bit more self-sufficient and possibly still more devastating than this character. This feels like it's a little bit more of a fair version of Summertime, but I still dread thinking about playing against Cleve gamers that are playing things like Pera and Rand together with Flan and Summertime Assyria. So yeah, like I said, it's kind of like a hybrid. This character's a hybrid between Araminta and Summertime. You'll be using her largely in the same compositions that you find yourself using Summertime Assyria, and that's not the only comparison to Summertime when we look at the rest of the kit. So the S2 is Scourge of the Sea. It is a damage reduction passive. It redirects 30% of the damage that she would suffer to the foremost ally. This is essentially Seaside Bellona's S2 passive, the first part of it at least. After using Execution, which is her S1, on her turn, when she has a buff, she will activate Hunt. Hunt can only be activated once every 2 turns. Hunt is essentially a non-attack skill that increases the combat readiness of all allies by 10%. Very, very similar to the combat readiness push that you're going to be getting on other bomb characters like Summertime Assyria. The fact that it's a non-attack skill and it goes in that same composition like we talked about means that the same counters kind of apply here. You are going to be seeing your Selines, you're going to be seeing your Politises being brought out against this character. It is a fine passive. Her S1 Execution is an attack that targets an enemy with a gun, and at the end of the turn detonates a burn and bomb stack. Any burn or bomb stacks on the target. This is really good, very similar to Researcher Carrot's S1. You cash in on all the debuffs from your S3 for big damage, and then obviously because one's a bomb, you get a stun as well. What really worries me is twofold. One, the soul burn grants an extra turn at the cost of 20 souls. You guys who've watched my channel for a while know how much I hate extra turn effects in this game because they just hyper compress games. They make aggressive comps like Cleave very, very strong. It just takes away from the interactability of the game. I feel like it allows the games to just snowball out of control. I think they are the best soul burns in the game. They are really, really broken when they happen. And this is a move that has the potential to be very, very broken. It wouldn't surprise me if execution is better than the S3 at the end of the day, and that is because of Summertime Asaria's artifact that exists in the same class as Flan. You can build no critical hit chance on her, and as long as you don't land a critical hit, you can potentially place a bomb down on the target after execution resolves, but before the end of the turn, which is when the detonate window should resolve. We'll see if I'm right on this. It could be not the case. They might have actually accounted for this, but in theory, you could use S1 to put a bomb on somebody and then immediately detonate that bomb within the same turn for not only big damage, but for stunning purposes. And that is really, really insane when you combine it with the soul burn, because now you will S1, bomb somebody, detonate it, they're stunned. Okay, look, you get the extra turn from the soul burn. Let's say you had 40 souls to start with. All right, cool, we're going to do it again. So this character, essentially, if like Rand goes first and strips somebody and then you get pushed up, or she takes the second turn, you can essentially just go execution, and just stun 3 guys, and then use your S3 to put bombs and burns on everyone on the enemy team, push her up, push them back. And it's like, cool, the second they come out of the stun from the initial execution set of stuns, they will be going right back into those stuns with bombs. So this is a very snowbally character, requires a lot of setup. I do think this character is balanced. There is a fair amount of counterplay, but if you don't have specific units or specific answers, this character is going to feel real oppressive to play against. This is not a must-pull character. I think that for those of you who are looking to save or looking for the next OP unit, you're safe. You don't need to pull Flan. But if you are an aggressive or a cleave-oriented player, you should probably pick up Flan, because I think she really fits in with anyone who is using Ran or Para like full time. If those are your go-to first, second picks on RTA, you will want to pick up Flan because she complements that style of draft very, very well. And then finally, the last thing to talk about here is going to be the spoiler for the Guilty Gear Strive character, which is of course going to be Jack-O Valentine. We're going to be getting her on March 16th. I'm, kind of in the middle on this one as a reveal. If you remember from my previous video, I really wanted either Ino or Nagoriyuki. I really thought that those would be the clear ones, but I guess the Jack-O pose phenomenon is just a bit too strong. For those of you who don't know, Jack-O Valentine is essentially the vessel of Soul Bad Guy's wife as far as Guilty Gear lore goes. She's basically Soul Bad Guy's wife. So I guess it does make sense. She is a very important character in lore. And in the story, she's just a bit strange as far as gameplay design goes, because how the character works is she summons a bunch of support drones to fight for her, and the primary function of those drones is either to provide blocking through shields or to detonate themselves as if they were a bomb. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was like a Soul Weaver that actually plays bombs on the enemy team and provides barriers and things like that. It's just a really weird character. Her playstyle in the game doesn't feel like it would translate at all to Epic 7. Her big super move, Elysian Driver, is essentially just a giant command grab. She kind of like grabs you and dunks you. So it's just a strange character. Like I said, I'm assuming it's gonna be like a Soul Weaver that can produce bombs. Honestly, I really don't know, because at the end of the day, the entire Guilty Gear cast in Epic 7 plays nothing like their in-game counterparts. Baiken in Epic 7 is an aggressive farmer, whereas in Epic 7 she is more, Guilty Gear, she's more of a counter-oriented character, something like Violet or like an ML Ken. Dizzy is like a ranged zoner that hits really hard, and in Epic 7 she does no damage to speak of. So yeah, it's a mystery to me. Again, a little underwhelmed. If you are a fan of Jack-O, congratulations. I do think she is one of the cooler looking characters in Guilty Gear. She does have a very quirky personality and a lot of really weird facial expressions and emotes. So I really hope that they bring this character to life with like all of her taunts and craziness and zaniness. So yeah, that's going to be it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed my analysis. If I missed anything or I got something wrong, let me know down as always in the comments below. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next video. Later now.